lot of drama this morning with this team. Obviously, you probably throw it up as one of the worst losses in the league this season. Bo, you saw it last week. They didn't show up in Arizona. Now, the way the Cardinals have been playing, you wanted to give them credit, too, for that. And obviously, it was a great win for them. In this situation this week against the Patriots, who are just a bad team, who did not have a lot of talent on their roster, to come back home, where the Bears had actually not lost a game at home in 13 months, believe it or not, and to only get 3 points. We're in full-blown crisis mode this morning with the Bears. Matt Eberflus' press conference was just going on. He did say, to kind of squash some concerns that just came out right before we started the show due to an Adam Schefter appearance on Pat McAfee's show, they are not benching Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is going to continue to be the starter, which is good, because I was about to lose my mind if that was going to be the solution that they had. They are definitely looking at changes. We have this update right now on our CHGO Bears Twitter account. Matt Eberflus said there will be changes and adjustments being made, but the Bears head coach did not go into the exact details of those changes. I think, guys, at a minimum, we're going to see a different play caller. For those of you that might be unfamiliar with how we do things in Chicago, we like to make things as hard as possible. You cannot just come out like the Raiders did last Sunday night and be like, Luke Getsy is fired. This is going to be some Shane Waldron will be reassigned to passing game coordinator or something, and someone else will take over the play calling duties. This is just how they got to do it in Chicago. It's rare for them to even make a move like this in the middle of the season. And caught in the middle of it. And this is where I'm really curious about your guys' perspective on this. Appears to be Caleb Williams, who, Jamie, I don't know if we've heard your thoughts on Caleb so far. I know most of the guys on the show that we've talked to this season, and it's been reassuring for those of us in Chicago, like Caleb Williams, think he's going to be really good despite everything going on. Our fear right now in Chicago is that the Bears are doing what they do, and they're just ruining another young quarterback. But in this case, Caleb Williams seems way more talented than the past ones that have been here.
Yeah, you can fill me in a little more on the offensive line performance, but the last 25, 30 years in Philadelphia, we've been spoiled from the Andy Reid philosophical approach of there's no point in getting a young quarterback in this league if you can't protect him. And from the little I've seen of Caleb this year, you can see the talent is there, but the guy's under duress, it's seemingly every play. So it's interesting to me that not just the Bears, but, all teams, Bryce Young in particular, he actually only took 1 sack this weekend versus the Giants. But all teams that have rookie quarterbacks aren't investing the prior 2 years in high draft picks of offensive linemen, aren't signing top of the market guys. Because if you throw a young quarterback in this league to the Wolves, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be carnage. And I feel like Caleb Williams isn't really given a fair shake here, given, the offensive line woes out there. I almost feel bad for the guy in a weird way. DJ Moore seemingly is half quitting on plays. That Hail Mary really seems to have broken them. And they just seem like a poorly coached team. And I'm shocked as an outsider that Eberflus is still there because, it's not a small sample size anymore. Maybe an in-season firing is too drastic, but it happens all the time. So, one, I'm shocked at the underperformance of the offensive line, and two, that he's still there, frankly, because, from an outsider's perspective, it looks like this team is all but quit on the season.
It's been head scratching. It really has, just as far as how they're deploying this offense with I know you're impressed by Caleb Williams, the prospect, and what he was able to do at USC. And I think that still gives a lot of people confidence, including myself, that he's going to be a productive, good quarterback in the NFL level. But what they are not giving him any help. And, you look at them trying to get DeAndre Swift and the run game going yesterday, and that still wasn't enough. When it comes down to it, when they need Caleb Williams in this passing game to make a play, opposing defenses, they'll welcome that. It's in such disarray. And the play just seems dead from the very, snap of the football, or even pre-snap. It's what we watched on display last week against the Cardinals. I feel you, Hogue, where it's like you can credit the Cardinals defense but a lot of that was the issues going on with the Bears on offense. And, the Jets this week suffered from the same thing, and the Cardinals just happened to be, the team that benefited from it. I saw Nathaniel Hackett come up in the elevator to the press box. I mean, a guy who was stripped of his play calling duties earlier this season for the Jets. And I'm wondering, like, what does this guy even do now? Like, why are they keeping him around? And I'm curious what they'll do if they strip Waldron of his play calling here for the Bears in a similar fashion. But you just see like this, both offenses just don't have a direction. They don't have a path. It's just a bunch of mumble jumbled plays that they seem to run, and it just doesn't benefit anybody. And it's unfortunate. Could you be ruining a really impressive prospect while you're doing this, just with this malpractice from the play calling standpoint?
Yeah, and I'm sure this has happened before, but I'm struggling to think of an example off the top. I don't what I'm translating from this press conference that just happened about 10 minutes from where I live here in my home studio right now is that Matt Eberflus just announced that he's making a change, but he's not ready to announce what those changes are. Like what?
Oh boy.
Like he's basically said we're looking at changes. Changes are going to be made, but we're still in the evaluation process. Like that just tells me there's a huge. Your mouth? Yeah. It just tells me there's like infighting going on, and they can't figure out who should be running this thing. Or that there's a big disagreement over who should be the guy that's calling play. That's crazy, but that's where the Bears are at right now, I guess, guys. Whew.
So are you guys already in the stage, Adam, where you're, hoping and praying that Ben Johnson comes to Chicago in the offseason, or they get the next, whether it be a Mike Vrabel or whoever? Is that already the focus of Chicago Bears, hopes and dreams right now?
Yeah, pretty much. And that was that essentially kicked off officially last week when they lost to the Cardinals. I mean, the way the Hail Mary was bad. I thought the bigger issue was how it was handled publicly in the 48 hours after that game, with the head coach basically just denying all responsibility, putting it all on the players. And so we knew going to Arizona last week, okay, this game's going to tell us a lot about how much he still has this locker room. Are they going to come out and fight? And, last week the spread with the Cardinals was basically 1.5. Could have gone either way, it felt like, during the week. By the time we got to kickoff, when you looked at the injury report, when you looked at the mood of that team, there was a really bad feeling. And that's how it played out on the field. And the Cardinals just killed them. And so at that point, it was like, all right, this thing's pretty much done. Now, we all, unfortunately, still picked them to beat the Patriots because the Patriots are that bad and the Bears have been good at home. And then, this is just where that thing's heading. And I think Ben Johnson's probably the name that everybody is hoping for at this point.
You think he'd want to come to Chicago? I mean, there's been reports that he's going to be picky as far as what his next destination is going to be. He's not going to – I mean, this previous offseason, he had opportunities.
He denied some requests,
He denied them. And, does he look at the Bears who, you can shift all this furniture, but it's still, the Titanic that's sinking to the bottom of the ocean like year after year. I mean, is there confidence that they can persuade a guy like Ben Johnson to leave his position in Detroit?
Caleb Williams would be why, right?
Yeah. I mean, that would be
Caleb
it,
Williams,
right?
Then it becomes a great place.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, but people thought that it was different this time, that Caleb was actually walking into a good situation, and it obviously has not played out that way. So if I'm Ben Johnson, I'm very picky. Money too. I mean, there was reports that he wanted like $15 million last year. I don't know if that ended up being true or not, but the Bears traditionally are not a team that's willing to pay top dollar for a head coach too. So, but you got Caleb Williams on your roster and you cannot screw this up. And right now that's exactly what they're doing. So, man, you would hope that ownership would be willing to do whatever they possibly can. Yeah. Because I keep repeating myself on this, but they're already an eighth of the way through Caleb Williams' rookie contract. And when you think about it that way, that's kind of scary.
Right. Yeah. I mean, next thing you know, he's finishing year 3 and he's going to be commanding going into that offseason, that mega money extension that we see, with these rookie quarterback contracts. I think, it's important to recognize, though, not always are the top trendy coordinators, the right answer. I mean, they're the top candidates, no doubt about it, because what they've done on their resume. But then you see what's going on here in the desert. Jonathan Gannon wasn't a lot of teams' first choice as far as the coaching carousel, in the 2023 offseason. I think the biggest thing here, Hogan, in my opinion, is, Ryan Poles is going to have to be an evaluator of who's going to be the next leader of men that they can bring into that locker room. You can find a guy that can do the X's and O's fine. Like Eberflus was great as far as, the defensive side of the football and what he had done, before coming to Chicago. But we're seeing that there's a disconnect as far as his ability to lead and hold his players accountable and his coaching staff accountable. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Can Poles identify, who's going to be the guy? You don't have to go out there and just throw money at the problem. I think it's just going to come down to evaluation and who they can bring to change the culture there in Chicago.
Yeah, and they're not going to be the only team looking for a head coach.
We all silly like the mayor.